you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show this Sunday. You know that our conversation never ends. And this Sunday, we go back to an issue we raised in 2021 and in 2022. On those two occasions, we had a conversation with Chekwas Okorie, the founder of APGA. Again and again, the APGA matter went back to the courts and to the courts until eventually it appears that the matter has been sorted out. Has it been sorted out? My guest this afternoon is Chief Edozie Njoku, the man whose name has been in record, off record, in court, of court. Where does he stand? And where does APGA stand? Edozie, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's all my pleasure.
Who are you in APGA today? And by what authority do you claim whatever you think you are?
I tried to laugh when you said that. I'm the national chairman of APGA. And by virtue of winning my convention in 2019, going through a whole motions where I was taken to various courts. I never took anybody to court apart from INEC. And eventually, the Supreme Court now ended the matter and sorted out the whole problem. It was sorted out previously, but they made a mistake. And about last week, they corrected the mistake and proclaimed me as the national chairman of APGA.
Can I borrow from you the words the Supreme Court used to proclaim you as the APGA national chairman? What did the Supreme Court say?
They said that Oye's name should be deleted. That's the former national chairman who I defeated in the Owerri Convention in 2019. They said his name should be deleted and my name put in there. And not just that, that I am reinstated from the removal that was done in Jigawa, because I was removed in Jigawa during the Anambra elections. And the Supreme Court went further to say that when I was removed at the Court of Appeal, Oye never came to the court to tell them that I wasn't national chairman. All he was doing was fighting Jude Okeke, former deputy national chairman, who had removed me. And he targeted Jude Okeke to get power back for his candidates. And at the end of the day, the case was dismissed and reverted back to the status quo of the elsewhere chairman, which is myself.
Do I want to congratulate you? I don't want to congratulate you because it appears that your burden is still heavy. So many daggers were stuck into the heart of APGA. As a matter of truth, APGA was brought on the table and sliced, and it appeared like to your parts go and decay. Can you bring back the heart of APGA to a single beat?
Well, I was the first vice national chairman of the party. I was a conveyor of PDP in Anambra State when PDP was formed. And it was from PDP that we now decided that we wanted to have a party that had some Igbo coloration. It wasn't meant to be a Southeastern party, but it was a party because there was so much, we felt there was so much injustice at that period. We were the only zone that had 5 states, the rest had 6, another had 7. The way local governments were being done, we found that we couldn't win elections at the national level. And we felt that there is no way a Southeasterner could win an election of a party, of a major party as a primary, because of the way everything was done. And we looked at AD. AD was doing reasonably well. Looking at AMPP, and AMPP were protecting the interest of the North. Then we look at AD. AD was protecting the interest of the Southwest. And we said we need to have a party as well, not to be a confucianist, not to be a militant group, but a group that speaks for its people as a political party. And when you see what's been happening in Nigeria in the past 5-6 years, you know that the South actually does need a body, a political party as per se, speaking out for the interest of the Southeast.
Yeah, but my question was bringing APGA back to one single heartbeat. Because all these court cases, all these altercations, all these divisions and exits and returns factually divided the soul of APGA.
I would love to answer that question very. You see, if the hearts were not divided, as you said, APGA would have, by now, would have had at least 4 to 5 states in the Southeast. What happened was certain people in Anambra State felt that it was their birthright. And when you come near, they say there's a party on kind. They even changed the slogan of Unyahala Nwanne, which is be my brother's keeper, to this is our own. It's not an Anambra party. It's a party, it's a Nigerian party, but the Southeasterners, when you go to Ebonyi, they love APGA. You go to my state, Imo, they really, really love APGA. You go to Enugu State, they love APGA. So the amount of people outside who have been fighting and praying to God that what has happened today has happened are more than those in Anambra State who are just fighting to hold on to, I have to be very careful with my word, to hold on to a regular paycheck, to hold on to something that is just giving them, keeping them afloat, which should not be. APGA should not be used as a business. APGA is a political party that was formed to be able to speak for the interests of the Southeast. As I said before, it is only a Yoruba man that can speak for a Yoruba. I will not go out and start shouting for the Yoruba man. I would love a Yoruba man to come out to the table and speak for a Yoruba man. For a Fulani man to come out and speak for a Fulani man. For a Hausa man to come out and speak for another, and vice versa. And an Igbo man to come out and speak for the interests of an Igbo man. But what we've noticed in Nigeria as well is that people go out and speak for their own self-interest. So it's also better when you have a political party that is speaking for an interest of a group interest.
Chief Njoku, you are now reinstated as the national chairman of APGA. When will you take over the secretariat, the national secretariat of the party?
That question always comes up, and I told people that we're not animals, so we're not going to go and start fighting and getting thugs. I know so many youths have come and said they want to come out and evict. I said, no, relax. It's a process. Just people have been saying, why haven't INEC responded? INEC were only written to them by us yesterday. We only sent them our letter yesterday because we had to do some back channels first. The letters have gone in from the Supreme Court to INEC. Now I believe and I know that INEC will respond favorably in the shortest period of time. With that, we will write to the police. But once that happens, Oye then will scamper away from them. They will leave that place. You understand? All they're holding on to is that INEC are still recognizing them. As soon as we get recognition, we will move into our office. You can see that we now had to hire some offices within my office to be able to accommodate APGA for these years. That's not what APGA should be doing. APGA should be in an office that we purchased with the money of APGA and carry on APGA business.
Now, you know that a leader has the burden of carrying both the faithful and the renegade. Some people have, over time, made APGA an uncomfortable place for you. Yes. Eventually, you've been pronounced the national chairman of APGA. How will you dispose to those people? How will you treat them? Are you prepared to open your arms and say, everybody return to the family fold? Or are you holding a stick and say, the soul that sinneth, it shall die?
No. Even my colleagues in the National Working Committee, most of them are even worried that I might be even too favorable. What I believe is that politics is a game of numbers. And if we are in a game of politics where we have to win elections, we're not running a town union meeting where we have to revert to how it has to be, how much capacity you have to win elections. And it's a game of numbers, and it's for all. It's not for the well-educated, for the non-educated, for the short man, for the tall man, for the fair man. It's for everybody. And it will be a very, very terrible mistake if we go into the rebuilding of APGA carrying I'm a Catholic that takes Holy Communion. So for starters, once I deal with you and something, I throw it out of my mind. So I'm looking forward to the rebuild of APGA. I don't think personally, inside my heart, that anybody can do this rebuilding better than I can, because I truly believe in dialogue. And I truly believe that in politics, particularly Nigerians, we don't carry things in our hearts. You see someone that you think you are quarreling with. By the time you sit down with him and talk, he becomes even a better friend than the other man who you thought was your friend. So APGA needs to be rebuilt. And if you were part of us in APGA in 2003, when we ran for elections, and saw how well APGA did, not just in the Southeast, in Bayelsa, in Kano, in Lagos, you will know that we have a goal that we have to supersede. And why I have a lot of respect for Chekwas was I was his first vice national chairman of the Southeast, and I saw how relentless and hardworking he was then. And I feel that the plug was pulled at when he could have made a difference. I stayed in the shadows watching him, and also watching Victor, watching P2B, watching all of them. Sometimes they will say, why, is it me who is doing all this? Yes, because I was watching them in the shadows. I'm not a high table person. I'm a back street person. I'm someone who stays in the back room and does the work. But now I've always known I have that capacity to do what I intend to do now. And I'm going to do it very, very well.
Pointedly, where will you keep Victor Oye in this new APGA?
I have said severally on the news that Victor, I really pray, if he really believed in APGA, he should hang on in Amobia. For a starter, if he puts his mind to it, we will never lose Amobia ward. Like I never lose my ward. So if someone took over from me and kicked me, they will start losing Ibeku ward. So I'm begging him to please hang on in there. He has been in the party, he has literally, by default, done 8 years. A lucky man. He should forget about all the past and try to see that APGA that has done a lot in his life stays alive.
Let me take you to the national stage. There is a conversation in the country today. A new Nigeria is possible, they say.
True.
There's also the conversation that, look, greater unity, better understanding, we build a better Nigeria. Where does APGA fit in ideology, in disposition to this new conversation?
This new conversation is a conversation that every Nigerian, right-thinking Nigeria, believes and wants to happen, where a concept is in Nigeria, where there's evolution, people are a new political life, because things are not well at all. APGA was built on a premise that we are going to use APGA to go to the center and discuss with other Nigerians and bring back reasonable things to the Southeast and all those marginalized areas in Nigeria. APGA is not really just a party of the Southeast. If you notice, most of the people in this room who are NWC members are from the far north. There's from Jigawa, there's from Katsina, there's from Kwara, all over the place. And their ideology is that we as Nigerians, the modern Nigeria, should all come together, not looking at me as an Igbo man or me looking at him as a Fulani man. We all come together to better Nigeria. The suffering you have in Mongolu and the suffering you have in Ibe-Kumbi are exactly the same. Sometimes it's even worse in the north. You understand? So we all should put our heads together for that modern new Nigeria to evolve.
I told you off camera that I was going to ask you an ambush question.
Yes.
Can I ask you now?
Please. And
can you make an assessment of the last election?
Maybe my annoyance that we were excluded made me a little bit, what's the right word, nonchalant to looking into it so much. But for the little I picked out of the elections, I saw that where people work hard, I saw some areas Labour won, I saw some areas APGA won, I saw some areas PDP won, I saw some areas APC won. Not all of them, some of them might have been rigged, but a few of them were areas where people had done the work, not done the talk. Areas where people, particularly some candidates in PDP in the Southeast that won, I looked very closely at them and they did the work. And I said to my NWC that Our work should start from the first day after 2023 elections, because when you do the work, you will be able to achieve. And this aspect of the beavers, I don't know much about it, but for the areas that it works, because in my local government house of assembly, the elections were going on and they were transmitting results. At a point, they stopped the transmission and now rigged with that area. We can build on that. And the building we can do on that is to be able to make sure that all results are transmitted. And once that happens, you will see that there will be a lot of surprises. The politics of Nigeria will start changing. And as I said to you earlier on, I like looking to the front. I hate looking backwards. The most important thing is that INEC themselves, we need to really look deep when we're choosing someone who is going to lead areas like INEC, CBN, all those areas. I'm not saying that the ones who are there have anything at fault, but the country needs to know that people you put in these areas are so important to the general growth of the country. Very, very important. So we need to look into them, make sure we have people who are very capable, remove tribalism, remove all aspects. Look for someone who's totally detribalized or someone who doesn't look at money as so important as we in Nigeria do. Because the biggest problem we have sometimes in Nigeria is that money is our God. And as soon as money becomes your God, you do things that a normal human being, I'm not saying a normal Nigerian, I say a normal human being will not dream of doing.
Things that a normal human being will not dream of doing. Yeah. But there is also this argument that politics in Nigeria, especially political parties and their processes, have become the refuge of the scoundrel. Now listen to why that argument. I'm not the person making it. That by the time the military, by the time Abacha died, yeah, and Abdulsalam Abubakar took over, yeah, most clean-minded, moralistic Nigerians, yeah, who would have moved into critical leadership were still skeptical and stayed back. And the devil 419ers, whose stock in trade is fraud, subterfuge, and undermining the process, took over the realms of politics, and that they have implanted their value, and there is abiding value in Nigerian politics. And therefore, political parties, political processes have become the refuge of Nigeria's scoundrels. What do you say about this? And do you think APGA as a party can filter this argument and stand clean?
I love your questions, and what I'll say is that whole scenario is very simplistic. Nigeria is a little bit more complicated than that, and it's so simple to make aversions. And the simplest basic thing in that is that Nigerians don't persevere. They don't fight for their rights. They don't tell the truth. We don't have any values. You look at the fight I fought in APGA against 2 sitting governors. No one would do that because money comes in. I can't tell you the kind of offers I've had. But why I'm going that direction is that most of all the people we're talking about, what you're talking about happened in 1998? 1998. And you think of the age, there are so many youths now that we should be looking at them taking power. You understand? My son is 29, was 27 when he was a senior special advisor to the Prime Minister of England. When they write about him, they say a senior member of the Conservative Party. He was in his 20s. We should give more power to the youths. And they are fighting a bit and they are coming up. And I just asked them to take a look at the fight I fought and try and be persistent, continuous, stop listening to all these old men telling them that it's impossible, that he has too much money, it can't be done. Because they are fighting for their lives. It's near impossible for a youth today to buy a new car. I bought my first new car in 1983, 11,600, an SR 504, from a business I did after my youth service. 11,500, no youth can buy unless he's got a straw or siphon to some part of government where money is coming from. No youth can build a new house unless there's somewhere that we can't explain that the money is coming. It shouldn't be like that. They should all get up. Nobody's stopping you from speaking. But what Nigeria fights against, or a state fights against, is you coming up with with all kinds of, go out into politics and put your war out. And when you go into politics, speak, and people will listen to you. And all those so-called 419ers or whoever you're talking about will find that when they're in the room with them, they can't talk because they have nothing to talk about. So the more of the people that can put up the kind of fight, even if at the end of the day they model me up and everything, I have been able to express myself. I'm talking to your camera now saying that that's what needs to be done. Nigeria doesn't need war. We don't need to all this breakout. All we need is to restructure our Nigeria and be able to tell ourselves the truth.
Edozie Njoku, I'm happy about your enthusiasm. But can you look at the last election and see how the entire processes were muddled up, were undermined, were hijacked, where you openly saw violence, and where you saw that what ought to be a simple process
became a very difficult, complicated.
One of my guests said to me that processes and institutions have been captured. Capture the police, capture INEC, capture the officials in the field, capture the political party, and who are doing the capturing except those who are not very honest. Can an honest politician decide to do it the wrong way? I ask you because of your enthusiasm, very positive, but I'm talking about experience. And please put APGA in the mix. You didn't contest the last elections. You are going to contest going forward.
Yes.
How will you play in this kind of environment I've described?
We've been playing in the environment, APGA. I came out of prison. I was there for 2 days, and I made a speech, and I told them that there are groups, whether in the Supreme Court, whether in INEC, whether in the police. The IG of police might not know, but there's powerful people within there who are there to subvert, collect money from crooked politicians to do their bidding. In the Supreme Court, letters will be written against judges who go on a holiday, and somebody will write a letter to say that a judgment is false. It's all in the system, but it's for us. And that's the advice I'm giving to the youth, that we should stop crying over spilt milk. Nigeria is the way it is. When I was shouting those things 6 months ago, a few months ago, all those who are contesting the election, who have just contested, none of them opened their mouth to say, please, we need to look into this. And it has reoccurred and happened. But Nigerians should learn how to speak out when they see what they perceive to be evil. I'm not saying there's any evil, but when you perceive it, speak, and someone else can look and say, is it evil? Is it evil? And we'll collectively deal with it. I don't think any of those politicians we're talking about wants a bad Nigeria. They all want a good Nigeria. But as education is the biggest problem we have in Nigeria, as I started saying earlier on. And when someone is not educated, a dog can come in here and pass a excreta here. But if you train a dog well enough, he will never do it in here. Most Nigerians can defecate in the darkness. But a true person will never do it outside in the darkness because he knows a human being doesn't do it. What we need is an educated mind. And we're lacking in that education. So we can't just jump into the political sphere and start saying politics is wrong. The system is totally wrong. And we need to pick it one by one by one. I won't fail to say this. I've never really met Tinubu before. But one thing that I'm happy about is that I am a strong advocate of the tax system. I keep saying that. And any society where 80 to 90% don't pay tax, the country cannot move. Because even if you see a local government chairman or a governor spraying money in a function, it's not your money. But when you pay your taxes and you see him living a life he shouldn't live, you will rebuke him. And I believe and know that Tinubu will really do a great deal on taxes. And if we start building from taxes, we'll have the revenue to do certain things. And I think Nigeria should now be more realistic and let's stop being petty. We should be realistic and know that we are at the bottom of the rock. You can't take your card, your debit card now to London or anywhere and go to a machine and even take out £5. In 2012-13, you could go there and take out from the ATM, you could buy stuff there, you could go to a shop and use your card with your Naira in your bank. Nigeria has gone so backwards that we really need to be focused on how do we get out of the quagmire in which we find ourselves. I was focused on fighting for APGA to get out of that quagmire, a serious quagmire. And you can see the kind of quagmire whereby a Supreme Court judgment has been given and they rush to another court before the CTC is out and get a judgment from a federal high court. That is the level of decay in this country. And we just pass it by. People call you the next day and say, hey, we saw that another court has affirmed, Oye. And you look at this one and say, and I laugh, I say it's lack of education. A lot of people who are in big positions, they're not educated. They're not educated. And education of the mind is the number one thing Nigeria needs to, or number two after taxes. Because we need the money to be able to start building our infrastructure.
Chief Njoku, let me take you to November 2023. A number of elections are coming up in November. The Imo State governorship election is coming up in November. Bayelsa is coming up. Which other state again? I think about 3 states. Yeah. Will APGA contest those elections?
Yes, because we've done our letters at the beginning of the month, the 21-day notices, and on the 12th of this month, we're doing our congresses to who are going to vote for the candidates we have in those 3 areas. All is left to INEC to be able to do the needful and come and get someone to supervise those things. And if they don't, we carry on with our process. And at the end of the carry on, because the problem we have in Nigeria at the moment is not giving up. We don't need to give up. Everybody expects you to give up. Don't give up, keep pushing. And democracy, even in South Africa, took a longer period of time. This is the true democracy that we're fighting for now in Nigeria, because it has escaped what many people in government call democracy or leadership. I'm sure you know it's not what it is. So we have got to be focused and make sure that we don't take our eyes off the ball and do our own bit. Just your own bit is good enough.
A number of candidates won election in this last cycle on the APGA. Yeah. I know that in Abia, there's a Senate, distinguished Senator Baribe won on the ticket of APGA. Yeah. There are a number of other people who won election on the ticket of APGA. What role do you expect them to play in this new development, in this reconciliation, this new family?
What do you mean by role?
Yeah, they ought to be part of your reconciliation efforts, your new designing your new way forward and all that. They are members of the family.
Yeah, there are 2 things that you've got to take into consideration. In that thing is that Oye illegitimately stayed in power from 2019 till today. It's just like now we're going through a new process where we'll have a governorship candidate, and if, God forbid, because I know INEC wouldn't do that, let's assume that they don't accept, which they will, but let's assume that. You'll find out that there will be a candidate in Bayelsa State on our side and a candidate on the other side. So the question you should be asking is, there's got to be a method in which we as a party harmonize ourselves as a party. So that's an inside thing, and that will come up. Once we are recognized, we'll all go into our discussions of how do we harmonize and move forward.
No, I insist on the role, and let me tell you why I'm saying so. There are fears that now that you've taken over legitimately, that actions taken by Oye and Co. were illegitimate, were illegal, and with all due respect, bastards don't take over the OB or their fathers. And therefore, when the legitimate son comes, he asks the bastards out. Are you going to ask the bastards out?
Let's go 2 steps backwards. As I said to you, I'm a very peaceful person. And what I said earlier on, I meant it. I said that the very minute INEC gives us that recognition, there must be some discussion between that particular, let me assume that you won for Federal House in Abuja here, and he contested for Federal House. You're not just going, you've got to bring them to the table and have a discussion. You understand? And it'll be done with the party. 2 wrongs don't make a right. And they can't be claiming right and we claiming right. As a political party that wants to rebuild, we have to go into that discussion. But that's not our problem at the moment. Our problem is getting that reconciliation done. And I believe I can I can go to some of our people and say, calm down, next time you go. You understand? Those discussions need to be had. And it needs to be so that that person will know that things are not a given, that there are conversations and that what they did was not quite right. You can't blame him. It's Oye you would blame. It was not right. But they have to know that what the other people did as well are not completely wrong.
Chief Njoku, I'm going to cap this conversation with a request from you.
Yeah, please.
Now that you have returned to office, can you tell me the first 2 steps, concrete steps that you want to take?
The first concrete steps are, which is not very, very important. We're having an NWC meeting straight away after that and devise some policy statements. Then there are about 5 or 6 people on the other side and on this side, top leaders, who we are all going to collectively go and see and talk with them. Bianca is one of them. She's always supported me, but she was more on the other side. I need to go out and speak to her. Quite a few people. I'm just giving her as an example. The governor himself, we need to all sit down and chart out a way for the party. And he will look at us and understand where we are coming from. And we look at him and know where he's going to. And that's it. And make sure that APGA turns down the rhetoric. You know, there's too much in the air. We need to calm down and go back to the boots, go back to the units, go back to the villages and start telling them, not Unkabunkain. You understand? That's one of the first things. The second step is preparing for our congresses. Because we need to do, my tenure is literally over. I have less than 2 months on the seat because Oye encroached so heavily onto it. We will do our congresses, then a convention. And in that convention, we hope everybody, both in the diaspora, everybody will come out and we'll look at our manifesto again, know what Nigeria is today, how we tweak it to be one of the political parties who have a manifesto, because you must have a manifesto. We must tell Nigerians what we want to do for the next 4 years so that there is something that they will look at and know whether we're successful or not.
Chief Edozie Njoku, thank you for coming to the conversation.
It's my pleasure indeed, it's my pleasure.
Well, you know that the conversation never ends. It goes on and on as far as issues keep recurring and coming out. And my name never changes. It's Edozie Njoku. Good afternoon.